All systems go. Clear for liftoff. What's up, everyone? Tyler Tamboline here, aka ToeTagginTambo, back for another edition of the First Look Show. This week, week 9 in the NFL. Gonna break down all things DraftKings. Our first look. Got my guy Degenerate75 here with me as always, and we've got 12 games, DGen, this week. Got 8-4 split. Can get right back to that early only, afternoon only if you want to. But how you doing, my friend? I know you guys had a nice weekend away. I saw a little college football action. How was that?
Yeah, it's awesome taking the college football team out. You know, a lot of those guys I've been working with for 2 years. I've never met in person. So awesome to get to see them down in Tunica, Mississippi. Went and hung out, watched college football, bet plenty, played plenty of table games, bet the shit out of NFL. Of course, played NFL DFS and hung out with the boys. And, you know, it's fun. Had my first adult beverage in like 9 months. It was quite the sensation. Yeah,
very nice. It looked like an awesome time. Hope everyone had a good time that was down there. Obviously, it looked like some good eats too. So just lots of fun getting into it, but we'll talk all things week 9 here. And we were going through some injuries off the top over the show, just talking about Tyrone Taylor from last night. I get the update as soon as we hop on the show. He is in concussion protocol. So we'll talk about that game when we get there in a little bit, but let's have a look here. You know, talking about some lineup finishes. Shout out to Go Collect, Sean, Uncle Nick is in the building, Notes, New Ones, Bill, all the good people here are joining us. We appreciate it. We're going to pull up here and look at last week's big guy winner. And it was a lineup I reviewed on Monday. It was Apaku. I'm not sure how he exactly says his or her name, but first place, $1,250. It was a Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews lineup with Tillman on the run back, double Miami with Achane and Tyreek Hill, and then Gibbs paired with the Lions D to get a piece of that game, and then just the obvious chalk value of the slate that crushed for good reason, I think, but $3,500 K-Dot. And your thoughts, DGen, on this one?
I mean, the double tight end 2 weeks in a row, right? I so rarely play the double tight end, but I guess on National Tight End Day, which if I had to hear one more fucking time Sunday, I was going to punch a screen. I guess it was the time to do it because I think what was it, like 15 touchdowns from tight ends? It was insane. It almost seemed like it was a bit of a conspiracy theory that on National Tight End Day, every donkey dick tight end got there.
Yeah, even backups too. I said, though, it's a human psychology when they tell you, like, my wife is killer for this. Oh, it's National Margarita Day. I'm like, who even talks about that or knows about it? She's got the limes and the salt and rimmer and all this stuff that we're doing up now. And I'm like, oh my God, we're just doing this to do it.
Your wife gets it. You need to hang out with her.
Yeah, that's the one, right? Yeah, exactly. Get those margaritas. You guys want to get into the same contest. It is still rake free. It is still 2,000 entries. It's an easy $5 5 max. Should be the first tournament you join, in my opinion, whether you got one entry or all 5. It's great. $12.50 for first, full breakdown, $150 for 10th. Really balanced payout structure. $10 min cash, almost 18 or 20% get paid. It's definitely the best tournament that you can get into. So go check that out. Let's dig in though, DGen. Let's get the week 9, and we'll start it off. We got the Cowboys at the Falcons. I'll let you take it away.
I mean, I think that you got to love the total. 52.5 is insane for the totals we've been seeing this year. One of the bigger ones we've seen. But I mean, if you watch that Cowboys game the other night, they're kind of broken. I know that they had some busted scores there at the end of the game to make it look competitive, but their offense blows. And, you're still paying. CD had a monster game, but he did it all at the end in garbage time. Whenever I thought the game was out of control and the 49ers were just being dipshits. I'm not excited to pay $8,800. I don't care how many points the Cowboys are projected to score or how many points the Falcons love to give up. But I will tell you, the Falcons side of this, I'm definitely going to play because the Cowboys are not playing any defense right now. Drake London, after letting everybody down, price dropped down to 6,900. Let people go chase the Kyle Pitts nonsense again. I'll stick with Drake London, Bijan Robinson. There's definitely some guys from the Falcons side I'm going to be getting in on here.
Yeah, it's crazy, like the Mooney price bump, but it's a $500 price drop from $7,200 last week on London, a $500 price increase on Pitts from $4,400 last week. Cousins pretty much stays where he was at. I think he was like 6,200 or whatever. Also should note, remember the Cowboys got Dalvin Cook in there, said he was going to get a bunch of the work. Dowdle was a last minute inactive for that game. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at here. Obviously, it is a good matchup on the ground for the Cowboys, but like you said, it's a bit much. to get to Lamb. If you were playing it for that way, I think I want the Dak side, Dak, Lamb, Ferguson, but man, that gets expensive. And we'll have to see how value shakes out for the entire slate. I'm with you on the Falcons side. I think you can always go this way. You got, a couple good totals on both sides in Atlanta, in the Dome, push the pace. Let's see that happen. We don't have the worst pace here and a really good pace from the Cowboys side, a lot of plays. So you could see a nice little back and forth here, and we'll see where people go when we get to Sunday, but these teams love to pass. So I like this game starting things off. It's finally, we get a slate where we can kick it off with a good game. So I think that's an interesting one. Let's move on. Is it going to be back-to-back Bo Nix, or what's it going to be? This guy put up 30 last week, almost 29 and 29.75 or something. The F never goes away. Jameis Winston tore him up. Tillman tore him up. They actually lost that game in the dog pound. I said they'll play down to their competition. What do we think they do this week, DJ? And Broncos, Ravens.
I like the Ravens to smash the shit out of the Broncos. I think the Broncos, everybody these last 2 weeks, they just played literally the perfect two teams. They beat the shit out of the Saints and the Panthers, who literally might be the two worst teams in the NFL, two of the five worst for sure. And I think people are getting a little pumped up on the Broncos, thinking this is a legit team, where I think they literally just played the Sisters of the Poor and got some nice inflated stats. And Bo Nix took advantage of those games and really, did it. This is not a game I'm looking to get any of the Broncos. I think the Ravens are going to whoop that ass bad. The real question is which Ravens to play, because it really does feel like the Ravens will get to that 28-31 mark, and when somebody does that, almost certainly somebody is going to be in a GPP winning type of lineup from the Ravens. Problem is they're all still pretty priced up. I guess Zay at 7,000 is not that bad, but he also just doesn't get as much usage as you think he would for their number one wide receiver.
Yeah, I guess it's tricky. Zay reminds me a lot, actually, of Drake London. He's always priced in that same type of range, and you feel like there's a ceiling, but where is it? It's like 9 catches for 130. Very good and nice for 7K, but that sometimes feels like a cap, and that might be all you get. So one thing I will say, certainly going back to the well on Derrick Henry, it's not even like he was super popular last week in that matchup. Everyone was kind of picking and choosing their spots, but the one stat that's held true, and obviously it just continues on, is Henry when the team wins. And I just think it's like, again, you could say they might play down to their competition. I actually think it's the opposite. The public perception is that this is a great spot to get back on. Maybe Bo Nix can come up again. You can finally feel good about a Cortland Sutton or some of these other options. But for me, it's going to be Derrick Henry anytime they're big favorites. And I think they're going to bounce back at home and win. He gets like a 5 fantasy point bump on his average. And this is over like a 6-season sample size. It's not like this season through 5 games. It's over 5 or 6 years. This is how it is. And I think they're going to come through on that. So that's all I really have in this game for right now. Maybe some secondary stuff if you wanted to take a shot on Cortland Sutton or something. Do you think there could be any chance at all? I don't, but just curiosity. Javonte Williams, super popular last week. He was like the all-day favorite. And then in the afternoon, everyone had him in their late swaps, all that. So he was super owned. Any chance that they, bounce back with him, or is it just going to be somebody else, if at all?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked at all the running backs on this slate yet, but I have to imagine he's not going to be very popular with being 9-point underdogs. And he's a guy that tends to do better when they're in a more favorable script. And what's crazy is they had a favorable script last week, and he still kind of shit the bed.
Yeah, agreed. And that was really a good spot for him. McLaughlin got a touchdown. Bo Nix stole 1 or 2. Like that. That's just the way those games sometimes go. But it is a tough matchup here, and especially if the game flow is what we think it is, not someone I'm going to have high interest in. Let's move on to this next game. Division battle in Buffalo. Buffalo certainly looks like the real deal after the way they've started the season. Josh Allen just threw his first pick of the entire season, so maybe that shakes them up a little bit, but Tua was back. Tyreek just busted for everyone, so he only goes up $300. Achane crushed it again with Tua back, and still a decent enough matchup. You can run on the Bills. Price didn't go up too much, only $500, and he crushed. What's your first thoughts on this Dolphins-Bills game?
My first thought is I wish this game was in Miami, and I'd be all about the Dolphins. I'd really want to attack this game. But in Buffalo, I just always get a little worried. I mean, Miami has had a good game or two in Buffalo, but they've also had plenty of games where they just do not have that offense. I do like the way the Dolphins are using Devin Achane. I think that he'd be the most interesting one. Tyreek Hill, 7,300. Once again, if it's were in Miami, I'd be all in on him again this week. But being in Buffalo, I am a little nervous about that. It does feel like Buffalo might get ahead and could kind of beat the brakes off of the Dolphins this week. So I'm going to have to do some soul searching on this game. But I would say Achane and Hill would probably be the two I would be looking at the most from the Dolphins. And then as far as the Bills, they've just turned into my new Chiefs. I'm just like a never Bills kind of guy. Yeah. If I ever play them, it's usually James Cook. A lot like whenever I play a Chief, it's usually like Pacheco or Kareem Hunt or somebody like that. I just kind of try to stay away from Josh Allen and his myriad 17 guys that catch balls.
Yeah, and it's the thing. It's really spread out. Like we have all the snaps on there and everything. It's always this way. And I said that earlier too. I agree with you 100%. It's almost like my never Mahomes thing has turned into almost never Josh Allen because it's really tough. I know, like, even Sean says in the chat, seems like he started to trust Coleman. At least with this stack, if you do want to go there, again, price is a factor. The whole slate at hand, we'll have to see. You can kind of do that if you want. It's the same way when people used to say, well, I'm fine playing Mahomes because I'm just going to pair him with Kelsey. The problem is you get a lot of disappointment when Kelsey doesn't come through with Mahomes or when Coleman doesn't come through with Allen. You're like, oh, of course it was Shakir. Of course it was Amari. Of course it was Kincaid. And you've got nothing. So it really does get tricky to do it that way. I will say this. I think people do just hop back in. You remember these days from PGA DFS where we used to get away with it and like nobody would play the guy the next week and when someone failed. And then now it's kind of changed quite a bit in NFL even that way. Everyone's going to say, oh, yeah, let's go right back to the well. Let's play Tyreek again. I think he's going to be just his own, to be honest, regardless of matchup. I just think people will see it as, they're underdogs. They've got to throw. How can he have another bad game? Achane is chasing. You just got all those points. Let me just go back to the well on Tyreek Hill. What's your thoughts on that? You think people will chase it and go again?
If Tyreek Hill's over 20%, I'd be pretty surprised. I mean, he will be owned. I'm not saying like we're going to get him at single digit ownership, but I don't think he'll be pushing 30% or whatever he was this past week.
Yeah, I could agree with that. I think it's kind of what I was thinking. You articulated it better. I don't think he's going to blow up like last week, but I don't think it's going to go away where people just move off him completely. Shout out to Keith. Said he's one guy off $25K to first last night. I know we saw a lot of people. We posted it out on the SHIPIT Nation X account, but a lot of people turning like $100 or $500 into 9,000, 9,000, 6,000. Just a lot of big boy returns. So love to see that. And then back to that other game, K-Town's finest. I really liked Troy Franklin last week. He even made Tambo's tidbits there, and he did not come through, but I wouldn't hate it. If you want to go back to a guy there, I would treat it more as a one-off than pairing them together. I think you could see where he has a good game for himself. You could have like a Derrick Henry, Troy Franklin mini stack. I actually like that call a little bit. So, all right, let's move on. We looked this game up pre-show. The Panthers have not decided yet. The news came out yesterday. They're going to decide between Bryce Young and Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton just $4,400. So I guess that's intriguing for some. Sounds like Derek Carr will be back this week or is looking to play in week 9. Almost a 26 point total is nothing to shy away from for those Saints. I know it's hard to get it right at times, but this is the spot, right, DJ? We just talked about it with Bo Nix. This is the two teams that Bo Nix lit up, but now they're playing against each other. So how does this one shake out? Talk to me.
I mean, it's almost impossible for me to not want to like have a rule in the optimizer, the shiptimizer this week, where every lineup must contain either Kamara, Olave, or like Taysom Hill or something like that, right? It just feels like one of these Saints is going to go ape shit because the Panthers, I mean, like they're historically bad. I mean, if you're giving the Saints a 26 point implied total, I mean, how bad are you as a defense? So it's gonna honestly, I'll play a Saint almost just out of like being a little scared bitch. Like that's kind of how I feel because just playing nobody against this Panthers defense, I feel like is very short sighted.
Yeah, and one thing I think, again, early in the week, first look, don't know exactly. We're going game by game. It's a true first look to see, but Kamara just if he already hits me as like a maybe this would be a good spot. Because I know last week he almost scored 20 fantasy points and almost did nothing and still got that going. Now gets the good matchup. Now gets the spot, favorites, all that. I just already see it. He's going to get ownership on this slate. It's just going to be the way it works. And so it's not sneaky if anyone thought it was. So just keep that in mind. Obviously, always got to watch the stuff on the Panthers side. Deontay Johnson was out last week along with Thielen and others and whatnot, but no Dalton at the helm. And also Deontay Johnson, big talk right now about getting traded. So he's one of those guys that could go fill the spot. They talked about him maybe going to Houston, who will get to the Texans here soon, but that could be a spot for him. It sounds like I think Diggs is in some big trouble now. Obviously, Nico's already been out. He's maybe coming back this week or next. We'll have to wait on news with him, but it sounds like Diggs is in big trouble. I already know he's not playing the Thursday night football game against the Jets. But anything else on the Carolina side? If not, we can move on to Raiders at the Bengals.
Do we give any bonus points to Xavier Legette for that touchdown celebration? Do we need to factor him in a little bit higher, some bonus points or anything?
You can do that. Yeah, he'd be a guy that fits the model. I know Mayo's going to try and talk me into Jalen sniffing the coker. Like always, that's his dude. So there's going to be talks of these plays. But I do think the game is at least somewhat interesting with the type of total that it has. And when you get two really bad teams against each other, you can sometimes just see fireworks and people are like, where did this come from? They suck. And that's why. So it can go one of two ways, right?
Yep.
All right, let's go Raiders Bengals. T Higgins, I think you checked the news on him pre-show. What's the word on T Higgins? And then what are we looking at with this game?
I mean, what was it? T. Higgins was like, with that soft tissue stuff, is probably aiming more towards a week 10, if I remember reading that right.
I think it said we'll take it day to day, and yeah, we'll have to wait and see on T. Higgins, but he was out obviously on Sunday, so I just got to keep that in mind.
Oh no, leaning towards week 9, leaning towards coming back week 9. This is week 9, so yeah, I would expect him back. There you go. I was confusing with old Debo. I think Debo will come back week 10.
There you go.
Yeah. So so with the Bengals, I mean, to me, the Bengals big team total at home, they have got to get going. Higgins and Chase are going to be very appetizing. I think Chase Brown could be pretty interesting this week because it does seem like he's taking over that backfield. The Raiders have a terrible rush defense. This is a spot where maybe if you don't want to pay up for all those Bengals, maybe you just get in there and get a cheaper Chase Brown. Hope he falls in the box once, maybe bust a long run, get you a 100-yard touchdown bonus, something like that. As far as the Raiders, I'm not real interested in them. Brock Powers is awesome. Guy's an animal, but I just don't love – it's just really hard to build lineups this year with $6,000 tight ends.
It just feels like it's unnecessary because that's the thing. Like last week, everyone was making fun of the Cade Otton or Cade Chalk, and they're calling them and that sort of stuff. It's like I showed them on Sunday. I was like, listen, look at the stone. I haven't seen a tight end that optimal all season. So I said, don't be surprised if he has like a 30-point game, he gets 29. It's exactly what happens. These guys are just priced extremely wrong. And the other thing about Bowers, and we even saw it eat into his stuff last week, was Myers came back, right? So now you pick up a few more bodies there. I don't even think we know the quarterback situation yet because O'Connell's injured. So they have Minshew, but then I think they also signed Desmond Ridder. So, who knows what we're waiting on there. Maybe it's the Bengals D with Chase Brown and just rack up, a 27-point team total at home, almost 8-point favorites. That could be a thing. But I think if that gets popular, some of these passing stacks, especially Higgins being $2,200 cheaper than Jamar Chase and Burrow, Best Buy pricing. Best Buy Burrow this week, $6,900. Nice. Get that guy in your lineup. So don't mind this stack here right now going up against the Raiders.
I would just say the biggest problem with the Burrow stack is, can the Raiders really push him? Like, what are the chances? The one big game Burrow had, of course, he got pushed in that Ravens game and was just chunking it all over the field. I just don't see any scenario in which they're going to need to do that against the Raiders.
Certainly possible. Yeah. And that's a good point because it could be one of those things almost like the Minnesota Vikings when they were winning the big games earlier this season. And then, Justin Jefferson would get there early and everyone's like, oh, it's going to be a huge JJ day. And then the other team just couldn't keep up or push the pace. And so he just stalls at 20 fantasy points. And you're like, oh shit, I paid like $8,500 for him. That doesn't really work out for me now. So definitely a great point there that you added at the end. Let's go Chargers at the Browns. Got $200 price bump. I know he's not in here right now, but $5,400 for Jameis Winston, quoting Slim Shady at the end. Eminem really is quoted the movie 8 Mile with Marshall Mathers in it, but he's got the quotes for us. So Jameis Winston, we saw what he did with Tillman again. That's another week for Tillman. The first week was some with Deshaun, but mostly with the other guys there, DTR and whatnot. But it's going to be Jameis, his squad on this side. They got a 20-point team total, and the Chargers. Lad McConkey had a good game, but talk to me about this one, Chargers Browns.
First of all, I'm just excited into my full transition into toutem. I am now a tout because I'm pretty sure on this show last week I said I was all in on Jameis Winston. So now I'm just down here giving plays, and he kind of smashed for us. So I'm just a Jameis slut. It's going to be – I don't love this matchup against the Chargers, but it's going to be hard for me to not go back to him with that price tag and those cheap complimentary options they have with him. Yeah, and the Chargers have nice run back options too. I'm not afraid to play some Dobbins or some McConkey or stuff like that to run it back against them. So I don't know that this game will shoot out, but I don't really know with these price tags that you need it to shoot out. I think a 24-21 game with plenty of, yards can get you there.
Yeah, and it's more of a pricing thing. I think that's one thing. Maybe you can talk to this quickly just because obviously the Stone, best tool in DFS. We've got it across all sports when you check it out, some showdown slates even. But I know a lot of people are having success and fun with using these report cards. And obviously, if you read this, it says the Chargers have a really good pass defense, right? They're an A. That's their school ranking. Like an A+ is solid. An A is really good. But pricing matters too, right? When we get a $5,400 Jameis Winston, no receiver over $5,100, and even his tight end is, if you were going up towards that Bowers range, Njoku would kind of be the one you might get to if going there, just the way it's been at 5,500, small increase. How do you handle something like that with a price value spot versus rating matchup report card?
I mean, I think a lot of times the best way to think of it is just think of them, if they get 4x what their salary is, they're usually having you a very good day, right? So let's just take Burrow from the game before. He's going to have to get 4x. He's going to have to get 28 points. He probably gets 28 points 2 or 3 times a season. Whereas Jameis Winston, to get his 4x, is only going to have to score about 20 or 21 points. And he's a guy that would do that literally every other week. So just like whenever you just are doing points per dollar, these cheap guys are able to get there so much more frequently and often that they're going to be able to pay it off, and they don't have to be in these crazy shootout games to get there.
Everyone loves Winston. I'm not a big fan of his humor, but I get it. Like it's always been his way. I think he's an amazing motivator when he gets in the thing with everybody there, but I know there's cameras watching that too, and as does he. But Jameis said he plays for the logo on his helmet, which the helmet has no logo. That's a good one too. I think that's a good call out there, and I think that's something that people need to remember. It kind of goes with the sort of tips and stuff that I've talked about in the past of like when people say, oh, well, they've only got a 17-point team total. I'm talking about a 6K guy on their team that might get 8 catches for 80 and 1. They only score 7 points. That might be the only points they score all game, but his 8 for 81 and 1 still plays quite nicely in DFS. It has nothing to do with the 17-point total.
The key to 17-point totals is just don't be stacking up 3 or 4 guys from that game or from that team, right? Like if you want to go grab a one-off Lab McConkey because they have a 17-point total, that's fine because he could get there, especially at whatever he was last week, like 5,200, and he delivered, right? So I wouldn't have put him with like 4 Chargers in a lineup, but definitely 1 or 2 can get there even in smaller totals.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think too, like, even last night's game, right? Last night, Sunday Night Football, we were all following it along in the Discord, checking it out and whatnot. What was the final? Like the Giants. So the Giants put up 18 points. That's it, just 18. But Tracy Jr. goes for 145 on the ground with a touchdown, 2 catches for 5 yards. I mean, that's a very solid day at his price point, but they only put up 18 points. And sure enough, that's what I'm saying. You can find your options within the spot. Let's find some options within this spot and go to the Commanders and Giants. Speaking of Tyrone Tracy Jr., just talked about him off the top of the show. We brought it up earlier. We'll bring it up again. The thing with him is he did go into the concussion protocol. So we'll have to wait and see how that goes. Singletary, 6,100 behind him. Some Eric Gray stuff maybe. But, talk to me about this one. Jaden Daniels with the Hail Mary pass. That was quite incredible. All the amazing camera angles and views. The one of the fan that I posted yesterday is hilarious because they did like a play-by-play with their buddy and then went and played it and watched that happen. He just brings it back slowly with the, see his heart breaking in the disappointment. But your thoughts on this one, Commanders?
That play against the Bears guy is just crazy. Having his back turned as the play starts, then running over and being the guy who perfectly tips it up to allow the Commanders to win it. He literally did everything wrong. I can't imagine a slapdick like that doesn't get cut. But anyways, Tyrone Tracy, if you want to know why he's in concussion protocol, I have like 30% of him in my best ball lineups. So, so of course he has to be hurt because we don't want to have any momentum in best ball right now.
Sorry to cut you off, but did you already beat the wide receiver injury bug? Because that's what's killing everybody, right?
Yeah, I mean at the start I was hitting them all, but then a lot of the guys I have none of. Like I have no Nico, I have no Diggs. A lot of the guys who've been getting hurt recently, I've had none of it. So it's kind of like just evened out as the seasons went on.
Riding the wave. Go ahead. Sorry, I just thought
I went running back heavy in the first 2 rounds a lot. So I got a whole lot of the Bijan and Achane and Derrick Henry and guys like that who are doing well, whereas everybody else just gobbles up 4 wide receivers with their first picks.
Love it. That's nice, man.
The Commanders. I mean, they're pretty awesome. I mean, they kind of played like a nut low game for them against the Bears as far as scoring touchdowns, and Jaden Daniels still gets there, right? I think he still got to the mid-20s in his scoring. They move the ball, they get lots of yards. I think they had over damn near 500 yards of offense. I mean, there's a lot of points that are hidden. Everybody always worries about touchdowns, but there's so many points hidden in just the number of catches and the number of yards you can get in a game, and the Commanders can get there just on yards in that. And then you factor in they're playing the Giants. I mean, this is one of those sneaky games with a small total that I think you're going to see more fantasy points scored than you would expect based on this 43-point total.
Yeah, Sean, I don't know if you really want Drew Lock, buddy. I mean, there's a reason he's sitting back there, but he's had his times, he's had his moments in games, but it's also bad. I get it, watching Daniel Jones and just seeing him play it out, and it's tough, but he's got options over here. I don't know how much I'm going to love this game. It does have a modest total. Do you think we could see this as a sneaky game when it gets to Sunday? Because one of the things, at least I know this Daniel Jones stuff is a bit scary because people are all so worried he's going to get benched, but Neighbors 75, Robinson 58, Slayton 48, Johnson 27, Jones is only 52, But then on the other side, you got all these Washington guys that you can use, and you could even do like Brian Robinson Jr. Going up against this bad rush D and then run it back with some stuff or maybe some secondary stacks. You think this is a sneaky spot come Sunday?
It does feel like a sneaky game to me. It's not the easiest to correlate and stack. Neither of these teams, I know Malik Neighbors is the ball hawk for the Giants, but like this isn't the easiest game to stack up, but I do think it could be sneaky just based on the number of plays and both of these defenses being a little questionable at times.
Yeah, I like that call out. So yeah, I'm going to be keeping an eye on this one as we get closer to Sunday, but not much more on it now. I don't know if we'll have much more on this one either, but we're still going to do it. We do every game. The Patriots at the Titans. This is an interesting one, I guess. What's your thoughts on this spot?
Ramondre Stevenson's pretty good. And in these ugly games, he's the kind of example of a guy I'll go in and get that one guy from a team with a 17-point total, right? He had a great game against the Jets. I don't mind that. But generally speaking, in games like this, I'm usually only looking at a very cheap wide receiver or a lead running back. So if Spears is out, I would consider Pollard. And I'm always considering Ramondre because I think he's the best player for the Patriots.
It's insane. I don't know what the exact stat was. Maybe the chat knows or can go look it up or something. But Ramondre, I think is he top 3 in touchdowns right now? Or he has the most, he's up there. He's just getting touchdowns like crazy. You just don't even notice it or see it or think about it. 6,300. It's not the best matchup on paper, but again, this is more of a price play, just an option that you can go to. Anything with chasing the Calvin Ridley stuff after last week? 5,700. He had a lot of catches and a lot of yards in the first half and kind of tapered off after that, but he was still a great play overall in the day. Anything else there for you or anything else within these two spots?
Yeah, that was a weird little first quarter he had. Like, I don't know. I'm not chasing it. I don't believe in the Titans. I don't believe in Calvin Ridley. It does seem as though he is going to get more targets now that Hopkins is gone, but I just don't love this environment for him to be getting 10 to 12 targets.
Yeah, this is another thing too. It is true. We see this all the time, but it also, sometimes doesn't regret. Eventually, it always does and over a longer sample, but this is week to week and it's just one slate again. It's like I'm going to walk up. You were just talking about playing the table games. The guy that walks up to the roulette table and says, "Oh, red 7 times in a row. Let me jam black," and gets red shoved right down his throat again, or worse, green 00. And then he's the asshole and everyone else at the table hates him too. So it can happen. It's just one of those things you got to bring up, but let's go on to this next game. The other side of that Washington game was the battle of Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels. I think Caleb thought he had that game won, but for good reason. You don't see Hail Marys hit very often, but yeah, that kind of sucked at the end to see his face fall apart. But we got a good one here. I think this is in Arizona. People wanted to play Williams last week. It didn't work out. Now, maybe is this a better spot? Certainly the matchups got to be better, but what's your thoughts? I'm very curious about this game here. Bears Cardinals.
I just don't ever play the Bears. I like Caleb Williams. I like his upside, but with more Odunze and Allen and Kmet all healthy, he just spreads it around too much. Usually when I play the Bears, I'm usually just going in and grabbing DeAndre Swift and kind of hoping he steals most of the thunder. And like this last week was a perfect example. He kind of did, right? He was the only one that really did shit for the Bears. So I played that well. I went in there and got the one Bear who did the most, stayed away from that passing game, even though I think some people liked it in that matchup. I just unless Caleb Williams has his passing options shrunk down through some injuries or whatever, I just can't really play him. He's just too hard for me to stack because it's too unclear who he's going to throw the ball to.
It feels like a skinny stack, if any. Like if you're going here, it's almost like Mahomes or Josh Allen light because the prices are way down, so at least you can afford it and get away with it. But then you're still doing it. Like you put it in on DJ Moore, pretty fair price. He's out on the field all the time, getting a ton of targets. It's a great matchup, et cetera, et cetera. But then what if it's Rome? Rome plays a ton of snaps, gets targets, et cetera, too. So if you're doing it, I kind of like one of these skinny stacks. Maybe it's Caleb Williams and Odunze, and then run it back with like a Best Buy Harrison over here at 6,900. He's been, bouncing back, had another big week last week. Trey McBride, expensive. But anything else on the Cardinals side that you want to talk about? James Conner. Conner's another guy. It almost doesn't seem to matter the matchup. He just gets the workload, and then it just becomes whether or not he scores or not.
It used to be the Cardinals were a good fantasy team and sucked at like winning football games. And now it's almost like they're the opposite. Now it's almost like they're not that good of a fantasy team, yet they win football games, right? Like they grind it out and win tough games. It's so weird to see them, but it's kind of had to have me reprogram my brain. But like, I don't think the Cardinals are a great fantasy team. They're not. Kyler had a really great, efficient game this last week, but generally speaking, they're towards the bottom end of teams that I'm considering for stacks or looking to play anybody of.
And it's also a lot of dudes there as well. Last week was almost the perfect run out because you got Kyler, Marvin Harrison, and Trey McBride. I saw we did the takedown breakdown yesterday, and that had one of the tournament wins, which is awesome. Good for that. But it was easy to stack. The Stone had all three of them in the turquoise blue for the high upside, so it made sense. But it was like you had to have that perfect run out and the exact stuff on the other side. So it's like, yeah, all how you do it, but, pick your stacks and choose. I think that was just a point I wanted to make on that side. It is a little bit trickier than you'd think. All right, 3 games left, all in the afternoon. That was the first afternoon game, by the way. So of the 4 games set, the second one is Jags at the Eagles. Jalen Hurts, obviously a huge week last week, rushing in 3 touchdowns. I think he had 30, 32, 35 fantasy points on DraftKings. But thoughts on Jalen Hurts and the Eagles, and then running it back, anything with the Jags?
Yeah, I mean, the Jags, I honestly, like with Brian Thomas and Kirk out, they're going to be hard to play. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is actually starting to pass the ball a lot better. If you look, he's consistently getting over 300 yards a game now. This is a script where they're likely going to be passing. I don't mind a Trevor Lawrence stack, I guess, if, like with Gabe Davis or in Ingram, but man, it's getting pretty thin out there to at some point you got to wonder, like, are these backup weapons like Parker Washington anything even comparable to Brian Thomas? And I think that you're going to find the answer is no. And so that's probably going to kill Lawrence's efficiency. So that makes me pretty scared of this game. I'm more interested in the Eagles side for sure.
Yeah, and I guess that's how you'd have to think about it. Like, I don't know if it's just, even then it's tough. Obviously a great matchup, so I won't say anything about it. But if it's another Hurts spot, you could go Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, and maybe Ingram, who you feel super safe with, is just like a safety blanket with no Brian Thomas Jr., all that stuff. But I think the other thing is how cheap it is on this side. Like if you go Lawrence, Gabe Davis, and Ingram and say, okay, the only reason I'm even in on it. So you brought up a really good point earlier with the Bengals stuff, right? Like, do they need to get pushed? I think that was a really good takeaway, that not as many people understand that concept of Chase could get there early and then fall apart. And then that ruins your whole stack that you paid up for. At least on this side, you're not paying up for it. And the target tree is tightened. I think a lot of people will like that. It's like, okay, I just got to pick between Gabe Davis and Parker Washington and Ingram. I know I'm playing 2 of them if I'm going to get a guy like Lawrence there, and I can run it back with AJ Brown. Sure, but does the efficiency kill the savings and the price and everything that you're getting? Not to mention, it's not an easy matchup. These young DBs for the Eagles have looked pretty damn good, and it's Trevor Lawrence. Let's not forget. So I think that's another very strong point just from a process and strategy standpoint. I don't know if you have anything else you want to tack onto it, but that to me makes a ton of sense, where it looks free on paper, it looks tighter, but it's not really worth it if the efficiency is not there.
Yeah, and you got to worry about blowout potential. I mean, the Jags are like, they're a pretty bad football team. The Eagles are starting to play, it seems, beating the shit out of the Bengals this last week. I think you got to worry that there's a chance Trevor Lawrence isn't even playing in the fourth quarter because this game's such a blowout.
Yeah, and our guy Nick Cat always in here supporting. We appreciate you. Said, avoid this game. Everyone going to play Eagles, and Trevor won't have options to keep it as close. Could be Gainwell. Yeah, like I don't go for that angle. As far I get what you're saying, don't have any problem with it. I'm just saying I don't like, same in NBA DFS. I'm not going to go play if this blowout then this when you have a whole slate of games. If it was a short slate or something, I would love that call. But on a main slate, I just don't think you need to go that far. But avoiding it in general when everyone's going there for those reasons is certainly a way that you could go.
Here's a good rule I follow all the time on main slate NFL. Don't get cute with backup running backs. That's just like one of my 10 commandments, and it's worked out very well for me.
Yeah, it's very rare. And even the weeks like what was the Sean Tucker week? Mm-hmm. Yes, it ended up in the perfect storm of the Millie Maker, but it was like there was lineups within a point, 2 points, 3 points that did not need that, and were still right there and had a ton of stuff go against them, if you say it that way. So it's like, again, it got there, but that's a little bit more results oriented. Typically, you're not going to need it even if you get it right because nobody else has it. And it's also good. You probably got a bunch of other stuff wrong within your lineup. So, all right, 2 more games. How do you feel with this one? Detroit last week was kind of interesting. They were at home. It was the highest team total on the slate. Not many wanted anything to do with anybody. I think Gibbs got to 5% or 6% in some places, which if you were getting a piece kind of made the most sense, but they ended up smashing their team total in the first half. They got 50-plus points on the game. Thoughts on this one, Lions at the Packers?
I mean, first of all, I think Jordan Love's injury really kills the excitement of this game because the Packers at home against the Lions offense just reeks of a shootout, right? But with Jordan Love being injured, it really, it kills my excitement for this game because I think a lot of these guys are a little overpriced for what I would want to pay. And the Lions are just turning into the ultimate everybody. I never play him, and I always just say I just hope everybody gets 1 touchdown, and it kind of seems to work out that way, right? Gibbs gets his, Montgomery gets his, Amon-Ra gets his, Laporta gets his, and none of them really ever get there on a GPP winning lineup, right? I mean, hell, they scored 52 points, and I think Goff had less than 100 yards passing or something ridiculous like that. They're just a really good football team that likes everybody to get their slice of the pie, and that's not great for fantasy. We want to see usage concentrated towards people. So sadly, I think this game might be one that I kind of am sticking away from.
Would it change your mind if Love plays? Because right now so the MRI yesterday was no significant damage, but it's still something, right? Like you still got to, be careful with this guy. And it could be Malik Willis, which would change, obviously be different than if it was Jordan Love. But if Love plays, would you have any more interest in it?
I'd have more, but he still looks pretty broken. I don't think we're going to get 100% Jordan Love. I think at best we're getting like 80% Jordan Love, right? And I feel like a game like this, as good as the Lions are, I need like 100% Jordan Love to really push this game. Plus Jordan Love, God, it's so hard to fucking pick who he's going to throw to because he has 5 legitimate options he's throwing to all the time.
Yeah, certainly think that's the case as well. The other thing is too, the Laporta stuff. This would look cheap to most people, but then you see how the season's gone so far and it may look expensive at this point. It's just been really bad. And like you said, when you've got to pick between Raymond, Patrick, they were talking about using Allen Robinson last week with the Williams suspension, still suspended this week, his second game of the 2-game suspension. So last one for him, but Amon-Ra under 8K. But again, it's tough. So it's like Goff, Amon-Ra, and pick one, but then it may be those two and not Amon-Ra. It may just be Gibbs and Montgomery. You know what they want to do? Hoop always says it best about this too, especially if it's going to be Malik Willis in there. The Lions obviously just want to run it. Dan Campbell and them just want to run it. So unless the other team scores first, it's just going to be a ton of running, and that's how both of those running backs can get there. So I guess I will say this. If it's Malik Willis, I wouldn't hate using one of these two running backs and just let them go all game. Obviously, Gibbs has been a little bit more explosive, but Monty's that 2-touchdown plus guy that seems to always get it. Once they get in close, he can get it from 20 inside, all that stuff. So I think that's the interesting part for me. All right, last game, Rams at the Seahawks. What is the DK Metcalf latest? What's up with him?
What is his? We looked this up pre-show. Now I've already forgotten him too. Let's see. I think he's probably aiming towards being back this week. Yeah, week 9, right?
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, we'll keep that in mind as we go throughout. But obviously, you got
leans towards week 9 return is what my Twitter doctor says that I trust. Which I love this game. I think the Seahawks were really struggling without Metcalf. I think that matter of fact, just glancing, this might be my favorite game on the slate. And I think you can see that Vegas is kind of giving us a nice total there, right? They're giving us 48.5. I mean, that's a pretty big total. It's in Seattle. You know that they're not afraid to shoot out there. The Rams now have Puka and cutback, which makes their offense so much more explosive. I think that right off the hop, I feel like some Geno stacks right here are kind of calling my name. Especially coming off the lackluster game against the Bills. Geno at home against the Rams, who are going to push the pace on a 48-point team total. This is a game I want to get a piece of. And then I have great run back options with Kupp, with Nakua, with Kyron Williams. Like this right here kind of strikes me as the game that I want to get after just on a first look.
I know the Stone has the skeleton shell up, so obviously it's takes it from previous and all that. But what do you have the price on Nakua and Kupp is 7,700? So do you have the price on Nakua?
Right here, Puka Nakua, 7,200, very affordable.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Obviously, he was pretty free the other night, and everyone was complaining because he came back and he was supposed to be limited, they thought, and ends up having the big game. But I just wonder how people will approach it. I like the Kyron Williams spot. I like the passing side of the Seahawks a little bit more. I just feel like with Geno, a little bit more likely, but you could see it. It's $100 less to go to Stafford. So if it's going to be Geno stacks that are popular with Kyron or one of these guys on the run back, the other way to do it would be to switch over to Stafford. I feel like if I was picking between Goff stacks and Ram stacks, I would actually still want the Rams, even though I like Detroit's offense, bigger total slightly and all that. I just feel like this game fits it a little better. They want to pass the ball a little bit more. They may have to pass the ball a little bit more. We could see the shootout spark up between these two. And then if people are going to play Kyron because of the matchup and teams against the Seahawks have just crushed, he's crushed. You could get to Stafford, Kupp, Nakua, or however you want to mix it up, and then be able to use the Seahawks as the run back on the other side. It's not like Kenneth Walker has a bad matchup. So I think that's another interesting way to go about it. Any other further thoughts on this game or anything on the slate as a whole now that we went through it all?
Yeah, I mean, just this is a nice game where if you have, you could get off to a nice early start, hitting 3 or 4 pieces in the early game, and then you'll have some options where you can have your Geno stack, and if things are going really well and you think it's chalky, well, then keep it. Things aren't going well, maybe you can go switch to a Jared Goff stack, which will be a lot lower owned, and you could probably do it for roughly the same price. So it just gives you some options. So afternoon stacks can be nice if you don't mind sitting around and editing your lineups.
I do like the AM only and the PM only slate again this week. I liked it last week. I had a little bit of profit in the morning, not so much in the afternoon because I didn't really want to play a ton of Bo Nix and Lad McConkey, but they did well. They were much more popular in the PM only slate than the actual main. They didn't get steamed up as much. I think Nick brought up another good point here, and we appreciate all the good comments out there from everybody throwing them in, but says feel like a pretty good week to just completely scratch off games. I think you have to. right? When there's 12 games on the slate, you do have to make some tough decisions. And I think some of the points DJen brought up, especially like the Bengals one, thought that was really sharp. And again, he's not calling, like, who knows? We'll find out the result on Sunday night. The puzzle is finished Sunday night. We don't get to see the way I always say the puzzle one, right? Like we all have the same pieces, but none of us have the cover. The cover is the winning lineup on Sunday, what it requires to win, who builds it the best, the fastest, all that. We won't know till the cards turn over Sunday evening and we know what everything that happened on the slate. But I do think your points you bring up early are ones that not enough people focus on. And they were really strong strategy process points to bring up of like the Bengals could be a spot where they don't get there enough. And if the Raiders can't help them keep it rolling, that really makes the case for the run game more than the pass game, which is usually pretty popular. And then I like the other one you had later on, just about some of the stuff that, in these other spots, it can be tricky as well, where a guy like team like the Jaguars, maybe it is just a Parker Washington one-off because while others are trying to figure out who they stack and what way they go, I think it was our man Go Collect who brought it up, and I'm going to bring it up for him. Kyle says maybe it's just him in garbage time. And this is the key. That's back to the Tyrone Tracy thing we talked about. They could get absolutely smashed and worked over here. They could do nothing from an offense perspective. He could get you 4 for 80 and a touchdown, and a lot of it came in garbage time and still really pay off a $3,600 price tag. And it's not like he's a bad one-off when you've got injuries to the wide receiving core. So little things like that, I think, are what you should always be thinking about. I don't know. Do you have anything else you want to add? If not, I'm just going to run through a couple quick things here. But anything else on the slate you want to talk about?
Nope, just excited to get the juices flowing on a Tuesday, ready for another week. It's been crazy this year how often, like even this last week, didn't win, but when you get back 60-70% of your money and you're only playing GPPs, a lot of times those feel like wins, right? Like you just got to go into every week when you're playing GPPs expecting to probably not have a profitable week, but when you can get back a lot of your money, it keeps the bankroll up and allows you to just wait to hit that big week. So as long as I keep doing that, I feel very good about the process, and I hope everybody else is really, now that we're week 9, starting to form their own process, get how they like to do stuff, and are finding some success. That's what I would say.
Yeah, we love it. We love to see the success of the community. We post about it on X after every event. It's a lot of members finding it. I know it's it's everyone always looking for what's DGen winning, what am I winning, it's about the community. Everybody's out there putting in the work. We're all trying to do the same thing. It's the same pursuit to get to the top. We've had close calls, certain things like that. Other members have had close calls. We've had big wins. It's been exciting, and that's the fun. We've got other sports back. NBA is back now. NHL's in full swing. Golf's on a 1-week break, but it's still got some events upcoming before a little bit longer break. College football and NFL have been on fire. MMA title shipped the main this week, so congrats to him. I mean, he puts in a ton of hard work with Marley and the entire team there. NASCAR still rolling. The playoffs could be a sweep tonight for the Dodgers, but we'll see. But it's still going on. Our guy BJ's got you covered for Showdown. $85 is locked in. That's not going to be up for much longer, but usually $99 on for $85. It locks in that price. You get all the sports we offer and ShipIt for the 6 sports we have it for so far. As we add it for new sports like NHL and CFP in the future, you'll get those as well. If you want the free education course, you can sign up here with just your email. And then we showed this. I'm going to give this just for 2 seconds because the Discord was talking about it today. We've got some fun stuff upcoming, in the future here, myself included. But just to note, like the settings, some people don't know about this, but if you want to get certain guys under, at lower ownership, the bracketed ownership makes it so you can say, I want at least 2 guys under 5% in my lineups. When we're going through the takedown breakdown, I want at least 3 guys under 10% and 2 of them to be under 5. You can set our optimizer up this way. You can say, you know what? It's a busier week. When you use presets, it'll set this to 20. Now that tight ends have been better lately, you can set this up to a higher number and just say, I'll actually take more tight ends in the flex. You can go into the team stack with our optimizer, turn off the naked quarterbacks and say the only guys I would want are Lamar, Kyler, whoever else it might be, Josh Allen, and just get what you get there. You can turn off who you stack running backs with at quarterback and say, okay, James Conner, I'm good with. Bijan, I'm good with. James Cook, I'm not going to turn on with Josh Allen because I want to have them separate. So our tools are all there. We talk about the stone all the time, the stack rankings, the DVP rankings, like DGen said, getting your own process and putting it all together is the key. But if you want to join in the fun, get in the Discord with the community, go here, click monthly all access, get locked in for $85. That's going to do it for this one, guys. For DGen and for myself, ToeTagginTambo, let's ship it.